Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome to another installment of Divers Getting Coffee. My name is Ed, and today we're going to be talking to Tommy Mcconnell, a former U.S. Navy diver, the owner of 15 Fathoms, a deep sea apparel company. They make cool stuff like this, and shirts, and Tommy and I kind of get the conversation started already. So the recording you're going to see just kind of jumps right into the conversation. But Tommy had a lot of good stories working in submarines, cool things that happened in Aquava. Um, yeah, it's a fun chat. Fun fact, Tommy, I also recently found out, is a disc thrower and a comedian. All right, let's take a quick look at the website, 15fathoms.com. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Check it out. We got apparel for men, women, kids, divers, wannabe divers. A lot of cool stuff. You got to check it out. Over here, we have all the cool stuff in the website, 15fathoms.com. And you can find Tommy on Instagram at 15_fathoms, at 15_FATHOMS. Let's get right into the conversation. Enjoy.
Oh wow, okay. You know what? If that my last year in the Navy was it was so tumultuous, and I was still sort of adapting to the injury that I had, and I was trying to keep my sanity while working out and trying to process out. And I had a ton of doctor visits, and it was like, but if it hadn't been for that, and I was still in, I would have definitely we would have gone diving together. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like because I mean I just sold my personal rig, so I don't do it anymore. But yeah, I had my own piece, all my own civilian equipment. I mean, there's a lot of guys who, just like a lot of chefs, that I've met, they spend all night cooking, and the last thing they want to do is get off and go home and cook a meal. Well, there's a lot of military divers. They spend all day in the water turning wrenches and taking off patches or doing whatever they got to do. And on the weekend, they just want to go out. They don't want to, but like there's some military divers who are like, you know what? I have fun when I'm working, and I have fun when I'm diving, just to enjoy it. So I was in it for the love of the game too, because and when you're diving, you don't have to be on your feet. You're just floating in the air. You're just floating there, like I just love that shit, man. Like
it's like the next best thing to being an astronaut.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like, I mean, the way I like to put it to people is like, all right, let's say you're working on your car, you're working on your house, and you drop a bolt, you got a weird place you got to get into. Well, when you're working underwater and you got a wrench in your hand, you just flip yourself right upside down and get to work. Or, a lot of times we'd be working in confined spaces underwater, and to the point where you just pull your fins right off. And it's just like the AUGA mask, or the Mark 20, we call it a Mark 20 mask. And
the classic, the iconic one, right?
Yeah,
the new version of the iconic one.
Yeah, the one that just not the whole helmet. It was just go right over your face like an AUGA, and then a strap. But we'd be working in real tight spaces, and it was almost kind of like cave diving, but you just had to watch yourself. But then on the weekend, I love just, if someone had the opportunity to dive, I'd love it. I mean, one of the times I dove scuba dived out here in Canada, and I can't remember where it was, like somewhere up in Indian Arm, found a bunch of bottles. And then my other favorite one that you said the bucket list was the Red Sea. It was out in Aquaba.
Did you start diving before you joined the Navy, or did you join the Navy to dive? Like, I know when you're choosing your like specialization, did you join the Navy with the intention of being a Navy diver? Or did you start out in, got into diving and then kind of processed into that over time?
Yeah, well, I can say this, there was a lot of like building blocks that got to that point. But I'll start. So I'm originally from a place called Slidell, Louisiana, which is like way, way, way bottom of the map, down south, deep south. And I spent my summers, I didn't like to fish, I didn't like to hunt, not my shit, not my thing. What I did like was this little game, like, so I lived like on the water. So there was a pier that you go out on, you know, and every house had a fishing pier. And one of the things my dad would do would be like, all right, Tommy, let's see how close we can get to Mr. Pittman's pier without coming up. Let's swim underwater, you know, like we'll both start right here and we'll swim. And so that was like, my dad was always like playing those kind of games with me, and we'd go to the pool, and my grandpa would throw quarters in the deep end. Like, all right, Tommy, I threw a dollar with quarters there. If you find all four of them, you keep the dollar. And that was like it was a game for me. So growing up on the water, I had a neighbor who had a yacht. And one of the things that one of my summer jobs was he needed his bilges cleaned out. And he wasn't the most athletic dude. And I was 10 years old. He knew I was a competitive swimmer. That was also like that. That was my little league. That was my baseball competitive swim, you know, like swimming for the swim club. But he said, all right, Tommy, I'm going to give you a screwdriver and a scuba mask. And I want you to swim down into my boat and find this little metal grating and clean it out, clean out all the seaweed. And I guess that was technically my first underwater. But I was on a breath hold. But I dove down there and did that. So I like doing that. And then my first time actually scuba diving, I was in Florida, and my dad had his PADI card. So he rented a set, but then he kind of gave me the rundown. You know, he was like, Tommy, no matter what you do, don't hold your breath and just stay kind of close to the surface. Just kick around a little bit. He basically just wanted to get me familiar with wearing all the gear and putting it all on. Yeah. But after that, I was like 15 years old, but then there was a long span where I wasn't really doing much aquatic at all. I came to a point where I wanted to get out of New Orleans. I wanted to get out of Louisiana. I was kind of like on the tail end of a relationship. You know, I wanted to kind of move on from that headspace and get away from like restaurants and stuff. And I had an upstairs neighbor who was a commercial diver, and he let me try on his rig. And so I put a helmet on, and I was like, I could do this, you know, this is kind of cool. And then when I went to the Navy, they actually said, we don't, you know, what are you good at? And I said, well, I'm good at taking pictures. I'd like to be a combat camera photographer, you know, and I'd like to increase that skill. And they're like, well, that rate's closed. What else are you good at? I said, well, I'm a strong swimmer. I can swim really fast, and I'm not scared of the water. I have no fear of the water. And they're like, oh, you'll be a great air rescue swimmer. We'll put you, you know, you'll be flying around in a helicopter, saving people, you know, this kind of stuff. And so I said, all right, well, I'll start training for that. And they had a guy kind of working with me, getting me trained up, getting my pull-ups, sit-ups, push-ups, run, swim, all dialed in. And then I met a Navy diver. They had a show up to the training, I guess, group. And he started kind of grooming me. He was like, Tommy, he's like, you know, air rescue's cool. Diving, you learn medicine, you learn engineering, you learn how to work on high pressure air systems. You learn how to fix ships. You might go out with the frogs, the seals, if you go to that command. There's all kinds of avenues for you to go down. And I was like, oh, well, this sounds like a way better deal. And that was it. Like I was once, and then I watched some videos. I did some research. I read some stuff, and I was like, man, this sounds like a job for me, because even if I get out, even if I don't end up not liking it, I've still got this incredible skill set. You know, I've still got this skill set where I can go and maybe be a commercial diver or do whatever. So I was like, this is the best plan for me. And I went with it. It did go smooth. The physical stuff, like the workouts every day. Right. So I'll back up just a moment. So the pipeline. So once the way the whole deal works is, you kind of declare what you want to be, what you want to do, and then there's a minimum PT test that they take you on. And it's like, that's like the swim, push-ups, or swim, sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, and then a 1.5 mile run. And it's almost like a draft. Guys that are all trying to get you know, one guy might want to be a SEAL, one guy might want to be a frog, or a SWIC, one guy might want to be an air rescue swimmer. And you gotta at least blow the number. Like, you're not even getting counted as part of the game until you can beat that. You can, you know, surpass that score. And so then once your numbers get high enough, once you have these PT scores and they need the manning, then they're like, oh, you just got drafted. You just got offered a contract. That's what they tell you. And you're like, oh shit, all right, cool, awesome, here we go. And then you go to boot camp for 6 weeks. You do all the boot camp stuff. For the special operations guys, like they add a little extra PT, a little extra swimming, during boot camp, so you don't get fat and lazy during boot camp. And then once you go through that, then you go through prep, and prep is where half of the dudes get eliminated. So like they literally sat us down day one, and they're like, "Hey, you see the guys you came here with from Panama, or you see the guys that are sitting next to you from boot camp? Look to your left and look to your right, and tell half of them goodbye, because by the end of the 6 weeks, there's only going to be about 13 of y'all going down to Panama City." And so that was kind of like, oh, like, all right, this is getting real. This is getting real. And so at the very end of that training cycle, we call it pool week. And so pool week, there's a bunch of different exercises, a bunch of different challenges. I'm not going to go into great detail about which each and every challenge is, but let's just say that some people can't handle having their hands tied behind their back and thrown into the water. They just don't like it. And I found it relaxing.
Okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah,
because I've seen videos of some of the videos that are, I guess, open to the public to see, and they look gnarly. And yeah, it takes having a command of your mental capacity to, even though yes, you have to be physically there to be able to do it, but just the mental capacity to stay calm and deal with that stress, deal with it. I definitely commend you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the separator. I mean, you've got guys that come in that are college athletes that have the only thing they've known their entire life is winning championships and winning all-star baseball and all-star football, and they played college football, and how they ended up, in the dive programs. Great. And they come kind of cocky. They come with these attitudes, but the moment they feel that first pull hit or that first thing where they get rattled up and they think they can't breathe, that's where you separate the men from the boys. That's where you separate the guys that have that mindset from the guys who are like, okay, I'm fast and strong, but please don't hold me underwater. Like that's a deal breaker for them. And
wow.
you would see guys freak out. They'd freak out, and they would just, they'd hop out of that pool, they'd get dressed, and they'd be walking back to the office to like figure something else out, because this just wasn't for them. And it's not a life or death exercise. I mean, your ankles are put together, and then you have Velcro. So at any point you can just snap loose. You can kind of break that loose. But that's a disqualification. But your hands are actually bound together, and so that it gets to people. So there's that one, and then there's 5 different more, and then there's like the last day is like the hardest day, where you're wearing some inert scuba jugs, and I'm not going to go into great detail what the challenge is, but they didn't lie. By the time we were done with that 6 weeks, there was only 13 of us going down to Panama City, and thankfully I made it through that. But the hardest thing for me when I got down to Panama was the equations, the adding and subtracting time. I know. I mean, obviously you're familiar with like a dive chart.
Like dive tables, yeah.
Yeah. Like we're gonna go down to 60 feet for 35 minutes, and then we're gonna ascend and come up. I mean, do you use a computer? Do you roll with a computer, or do you just chart it out?
Yeah, I did the charts and train, and I've never looked at it since. I use a computer.
Okay.
You mentioned a couple of things here that have been very interesting, whether it's in civilian life or in the military. One thing I really just took away from the stories you just told us, that having a mentor when you're starting out is really, really important in just kind of guiding the path and guiding where you're going. It's always good to have that mentor that can kind of guide you in the right direction. And in addition to that, whether or not you're a good swimmer before you start diving, whether or not you're comfortable with the ocean, attitude and ego are probably every diver's nemesis. Just like, shut up, be humble, and listen. That's some badass stuff.
It was
anything
fun.
You can tell us that's declassified?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was on a sub team for a little while, and you're basically fixing appendages, just like boats. Submarines have suctions and discharges, and things go wrong. A lot of times I found myself doing making sure that there was no nuclear leaks called swipes. You just take like a swab,
Right.
and there's different swipes, that, and just, I don't know, half the work inside as a diver for the submarines, you're not working outside the sub. You're going like so here's like where the people live in the submarine, but then you have a ballast and a ballast and a ballast. And so these areas fill up, these areas have different systems that work inside of them, and they do different things. I'm not going to obviously not going to go into detail what they do. But they go down, and the coolest thing is you go up there and you swing a grate, and then you climb in, you pull your hat off, you pull off your aga, and you pull up your tool bag, and you go to work, and you're basically like a mechanic inside of a big giant machine that you're just kind of, you gotta either do a job working on a drum or whatever it is, a pull, whatever kind of, I don't know, the ship's function it is that's gone down, you fix it. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun too. And it's kind of scary too. Like one of the things with diving, the subs is you're diving in very, very, very tight circumstances. So being panicky and being like, like flipping around in the water a lot. First off, you're gonna kick up all the silt that's settled in there, and then you're not gonna be able to see. And then also, there's 100 little metal things sticking out that you can whack your head on. So you got to stay you got to be like serene, and there's a couple different, what we would do is you drag your umbilical in, you pull your umbilical in, but then you also pull in a scuba jug that has a rag on it. So just in case that door slams shut and cuts your umbilical, you can be like, you pull your hat off and then you have air.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you have topside personnel that's helping you out. So if you were in that kind of a crisis situation, I mean, it's going to scare the hell out of you, but at least at 30 feet, you have like a 3,000 pound jug, a 3,000 PSI jug jammed, and you can just sit there and be like, all right, so am I going to let me out of here? Or am I going to die, sucking bubbles or sucking air through a scuba, So it was, there's that fear, but then you got to have a level of trust of your team. And just like when you go out diving, you trust that the guy in the boat knows a procedure. If somebody comes up and they're messed up, they're showing neurological problems, you're trusting that dive charter that they know they have a plan. They're going to know to start making phone calls, and they're going to know to get you to the nearest tube. So there's a stricken diver. And that's really what 15 Fathoms is all about is that bond between divers, civilian, commercial, military. Everybody has their own egos. Cave divers think they're hot shit, driving nitrox in caves with helmets on. Military divers, we think we're the coolest guys, the most high speed dudes, commercial divers. Oh, we do stuff you guys don't do. We do stuff you don't guys do. And they're, so it's like everybody has their own little egos and their own perspective worlds. But at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of people breathing underwater where we shouldn't be,
Yeah.
And that's
right.
Just people trying to defy physics. That's all we are.
and that's such a universal thing that I think we all connect with, whether or not like you just mentioned, recreational tech divers, commercial divers, and military divers. Different various of godlike levels, but
yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's breathing where we're not supposed to be. That's So that's amazing. And I love how you just go into the symbolism of 15 Fathoms and that bond and unity that really comes from that, which kind of leads me to my next question. How did you get into the deep sea apparel business, the clothing line?
Out of my own personal interest, my own personal narcissism, well,
I love the candor.
Right. Yeah. Well, what I thought about, okay, I was like, all right, there's like Hurley, Quicksilver, O'Neill, I don't know, Rusty, so many like surf brands, right? And they're all cool, and they all have cool T-shirts. A lot of divers wear a lot of surf clothes, because they're surfers. They're just aquatic people. And then right when I was kind of coming to the end of dive school, I was like, I want to find Google diver clothing, diver shirt, diver hat, whatever, and I didn't find anything. I found one company on Etsy that had like sort of steampunk almost looking era, like turn of the century sort of, you know, that kind of. And so they had a big Mark V diver on one of the shirts, and I bought it and I loved it. And fast forward to my second deployment, I was in the Middle East and I was in a hotel and I had about 10 days to do whatever I wanted to do. And I started digging on like t-shirt suppliers and t-shirt companies and apparel brands and that kind of stuff. And I found Shopify, and then I found Printful. And Shopify and Printful kind of work really, really closely together. You don't make much money. At the time, I was only making like $5 a shirt because it's kind of made to order. And so at the end, the unit cost was like $22, $25. And so now I got to charge.
Yeah, you can't add that much more to it, right?
No one's going to buy a $40 t-shirt. I'm not Kanye West. You know, I'm not anybody that special. I'm just like, I'm selling t-shirts to guys that are enlisted in the military. I've never bought a t-shirt. I can honestly say I've probably never bought a t-shirt that's cost more than like $30, you know, ever in my entire life, you know? So I was like, okay, well, I'm not making profit, but I just want to do this just to have my own diver stuff to wear. And it took off, you know, and people started buying it. And then I was like, man, I'm not making, all right, I've got the wheels are up. Let's start making some money. And so then I had to find t-shirt makers like in San Diego. And then I started fulfilling from home. But yeah, so about the brand name. So 15 Fathoms is a nod to seamanship. It's a nod to the history of seamanship. Before we had sounding devices, before we had, you know, DPS systems, when a ship would be out to sea, sometimes they'd have to moor out. They do like a 4-point moor. So they drop all 4 anchors down to the bottom, and they'd be at the whim of the ocean, you know, just more. They didn't have a, you know, shore break. So anyway, what they would do is they'd plumb the bottom. They'd send something down and say, all right, well, the bottom is 200 feet. So pay out 200 feet plus an extra 90 feet. And so 6 feet is a fathom. So 90 feet is 15 fathoms. And so what would hold the ship in place wasn't that anchor. It was the 15 fathoms of anchor chain that added the weight, that added that stability, that added that accountability, you know, that added that trust that our ship isn't going to float off into enemy waters, or we're not going to get, you know, flipped over in the night, or we're not just going to be sitting ducks floating around in the ocean. We have that 15 fathoms on each anchor to hold us in place. So I thought 15 fathoms was a great way to symbolize the unity of divers. Because I mean, you know, you get in the water with different people and stuff, but like once you leave surface, I will do anything. Anytime I left surface, I would do anything for anybody. I'll put myself in danger for you. I'll get in front of the, you know, whatever it is. If you're fouled, if you're trapped up, do absolutely my best to help out my brother. You know, to help out the guy that I'm sitting next to in the water. And so that's kind of, you know, that's the tone I want to spread with other divers. You know, trust your buddy. It doesn't matter if commercial, military, whatever. You know, when you're in the water, you're in an absolutely inherently dangerous environment. You know, and that's the biggest thing, is building trust amongst people who dive with one another, and that it's a group effort. You know, not just you know.
And the culture really just solidifies that, and that's what's so amazing about your brand, because like you just said, it's about the unity. Once you go below the surface, I don't care what differences you have. It's about that next breath, you know, and making sure you can support each other to go through the dive and come back safely and kind of move on to the next one. So I think that's how we kind of connected originally. You know, I saw the 15 fathoms. I kind of saw like, oh, cool, like diver apparel. Like it's not, you know, because we divers, you kind of just have to wear the surfer brands, and there's some that are more nautical, like sailing, but this was meant for divers by a diver. So I think that's pretty cool. And I have a 15 Fathoms hat on here.
I love it, man. Love the hat.
A couple t-shirts here and there. I got that's awesome. So, yeah, you just blew my mind with the explanation you just gave me about the history of it, which is something I think I've Googled, but yeah, I never got the story as wholesome as you just kind of explained it. So that's really good. Appreciate you sharing that. Now, going back to bucket lists, which you talked about earlier, you've seen a few things that many divers, period, talk less of people in general, probably never experienced underwater. So it gets me curious. What could be in your bucket list? The top 2 items on your personal bucket list to dive someday. I know you kind of mentioned Aqaba, so we'll keep that on the back burner for now. But what else is there?
Yeah, Silfra.
Oh, wow.
If I could dive Silfra, that, I mean, the pictures, just visiting Iceland, visiting the geothermal pools they have, you know, the crazy mud they rub on, you know, I hear the water is very healing. And then just to dive in between 2 tectonic plates and to be able to touch one and the other, and the visibility is just immaculate. It's like diving. I mean, this is from pictures that I've seen. I'd say that and Maldives would be the two big ones on my bucket list. I'd like to go out just to stay out there too in those cool hotel, like that cool hotel that's kind of like little cabanas on the water. That'd just be beautiful.
Plush.
You know?
Super plush, and they have those huge like manta rays that come through. I don't even think it's seasonal. I think they're mostly year round because their migration path really just puts them around the islands. And like Silfra, I want to say the pictures don't even do it justice. It is easily the clearest water I've ever been in, just period. Really? And it's so cold. You know, it's go through a whole geothermal process that it comes out. There's really no fish in it. Maybe a couple of small fish here and there. It's mostly just algae but it's super clear. Other than the bubbles, really, you really feel like you're in space. It's just like that cool. Super cold, but well worth it. Well worth it. The time when I did my dry suit cert, I did it with one goal in mind, just for Silfra. Whenever I had the chance to ever go, and later on, maybe a couple years down the line, when I got the opportunity, the very first night, I literally got off the plane and had them come pick me up, and I went straight to Silfra. It's well worth it. Yeah.
Any kind of like I don't know, extra safety precautions, or they're like, okay, this is a very protected area, don't touch the walls, or like was it anything like that, or was it just kind of like do your thing?
No, it was mostly do your thing. They go through the actual like sort of a creek. They go through. Oh, it's not a creek. What's the word? The gorge that you go through. It's kind of predefined. So you start out at the start at a certain point. It takes you through a bunch of rocks. Then you come out a little bit shallow and go through that for a while. And you go back down again, and it's probably 30 minutes. It's a novelty dive. You know, it's once you do it a few times, you probably still enjoy it, but the water is so cold. Yeah. You're like, nah, I'm going to pass. And the dive guys are pretty cool. You know, they know everyone is there for that. They're there. It blows your mind just understanding, you know, this piece of rock that I'm looking at continues all the way into Asia. And this one goes all the way into North America. It blows your mind being in the middle of those two things. And they're always pretty good about make sure you bring a camera. If you don't have a camera, get one. And when you get to the path where they kind of converge, like touch here, you're in 2 different continents, you know?
Yeah.
So they're pretty cool about it.
I think that's totally worth pursuing though. You know, I'd love to do that. If I still dove, I'd love to do it, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the best dive experiences I've ever had. I highly recommend it. One day we'll make it out to the Indian Ocean. Looking forward to Maldives myself, but I just don't know with everything going on right now. Do you still? So you're not diving a lot since you got out of the military. Oh yeah.
I can't. I got hurt. I got a TBI, and basically the system in your ear that kind of maintains your balance, your vestibular system, is a little bit whacked out with me. So vigorous head movements. You know, if I look up at the ceiling for too long, or if I do like sit-ups, you know, and I move my head around a lot, I just get where I'm completely disoriented, like almost like crawling on my hands and knees, disoriented. And then if the room is completely pitch black or filled with smoke or filled with whatever, I'm really good at finding like a little TV light or a little, video game like PlayStation light or whatever's on in the room. I try not to walk around the dark, but if I lose visual representation of where I'm at, I'm once again, I'm on my hands and knees. I can't walk. I can't hold myself up. So I've had to learn how to continue working out, continue staying active, continue swimming. I can swim like a madman. Still swim. I do ocean water swims. I can still snorkel. Love snorkel. I still love snorkeling. But if I was to dive, I'd be rolling the dice with my health. And furthermore, if I got into a situation where I kicked up a bunch of silt on the bottom and I couldn't see, I'd be like holding on to you. I'd be like, get us out of here. Let's go up like 10 feet, man. Let's get away from this part. Cause like that was the biggest, like a lot of times when you're diving under ships or you're diving in the military, it's night dives. You're doing night dives and those just really aren't, even if we had chem lights, even if we had, a lot of times you don't have chem lights. So it's, and on top of that, when I had my injury, part of the protocol in the Navy is if you have a neurological diving deficit or whatever, you get an MRI, and they found I have a brain aneurysm. And so that's another thing, that I have an unruptured fusiform aneurysm in the back of my head. And so I had a very kind, very honest doctor come to me and say, Tommy, I don't want you sitting here thinking you're going to get a waiver. When it comes to something like an aneurysm, when it comes to your brain, if you're a diver, if you're a SEAL, if you're an EOD tech, whatever it is, they're not going to waiver you in, man. Like it'd be better if you had crushed your hand on something or broken a bone, but when it's something up here, no go. Yeah. And so that was when I was like, okay, time to, hang up the wetsuit. Let's rethink things. Let's continue on with my life, but without the identity of Tommy as a Navy diver. Now Tommy's back to Tommy and a father, and Absolutely. you gotta pivot sometimes in life, and that's it's been hard, but I'm still here.
And that's the most important thing. It must have been, it's a great sacrifice to both personally, time away from family, the work that you do. And you've, in your work, you've contributed both to, the military, the country, and to the professional occupation of diving. And, eventually, a lot of military protocols and techniques of what kind of waters down to the like recreational sports. So, for your service, for the sacrifices you've personally endured, I thank you and salute you for that. Nice. And, really appreciate it.
I went for 8.
Nice. It must have been hard giving it up. You understood, this was a health situation that you had to, you have to be there for the ones, all of us. We all love you, especially your family. But
thanks.
It must have been hard giving it up. How did you manage to deal with that?
Well, a lot of whiskey.
I love the honesty.
Yeah. At first, a lot of whiskey, a lot of I don't know. I'd say the hardest thing was the most upsetting thing, besides having an aneurysm, was when I was still going in to the locker. I was still going into work, and obviously it's a small community. Everybody kind of knew what was up. You had a lot of people asking me what's going on, are you okay? And then not feeling ostracized by people purposely, but just like, Tommy just can't go out to dive site anymore. He can't be on a boat. And going into work and just seeing the guys like, oh, they're talking about the job. What are we gonna do today? We're gonna do this. We're gonna put a patch on. Then we're gonna do a prop inspection. We're gonna do, and not being like, okay, well today I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna be red diver. I'm gonna be green diver. I'm gonna work the comms and logs. And that was the hardest thing, is watching the moment when those guys would walk out of the office and I knew they were getting on that boat to go up to a ship or getting in the truck to go set up dive side. That was when it would rip my heart out of my chest. And then the other thing was like, okay, Tommy has an aneurysm. How can I work out? Tommy has vertigo. And then it was like, I still wanted to work out. I still wanted to exercise. I'm not just going to stop moving. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to figure out what I can do.
Right.
And a couple times I got people like, oh, well, you can't dive, but you can still work out, you know? And I'm like, look, I don't think you know the full story, bro. Like, I don't think you understand what's going on. Like, I'm working out, but I'm working out within my limitations.
Limits.
Like, you know, yeah. It's about finding that happy place of what you can do and what you can't do. And I mean, you know, so what I started doing was I went back to my roots. I went back to what I did as a little kid, and what brought me so much joy as a child was swimming laps in a pool. I mean, I did competitive swimming for I think probably like 5 or 6 years. Like from the time I was 4 years old, I was in the pool, little kid, and then I got bigger, I got faster, and I was winning, like, you know, I was not winning state championships, but getting there. You know, I was definitely one of the standouts of the community I was with. But I said, all right, well, I'm not going to work out on the diver and at the dive locker. I'm going to go across the street to the big base and go jump in the pool and just get it all out. And I mean, swimming is almost like there's a certain therapy. Like it's just, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a certain therapy where, like, using both sides of your body. If you think about your problems while you're going for a walk, or while you're using both sides of your body, it helps sort of alleviate some of the inner anxiety that you might have. And it's, I wish I had the name of this sort of, I'll send it to you later.
Okay.
But it can help you work. It's sometimes therapists will give you two things to hold in your hand, and like this one, they'll buzz like like left, right, and they'll kind of talk through what's hurting you. And it's something with your brain going from the left side of your brain to the right side of your brain, the left side of your brain, that helps you kind of process things and helps you accept things. And so that year that I just swam, that I had to, like, and I had one person saying, like, oh, I don't want Tommy going to the pool. He needs to be here at the office. And I was like, look, dude, if I can't swim, I'm going to fucking lose my mind. Like, you like just give me that. Give me an hour in the morning. All I need is an hour. I'll come right back here. I'll be in the office, and then you can send me home, or you can put me to work, whatever you want to do. But just give me this, like, fraction of time in the day. Yeah. And so I fought hard for that, and I got it. And I would say swimming helped me keep my sanity through that last year in the military, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm trying, I can't picture it. I can't think of the term, but I think I know of something related to that. You know, they say most people solve problems or have the best clarity with whatever they're going through when they're in motion, which in, you know, this case, swimming or walking or running or whatever it is, you know. So that's something very interesting. I gotta explore that a little bit more. But yeah, it must have been really hard for your buddies too. Like, you know, even maybe it's not official, but not even if it's not for official missions, for like just, hey, we're gonna check this out. You know, in the time where you're kind of going through that, I'm sure they probably, like, you know, I don't want to bring this up, so not to tempt him or whatnot to kind of get out there and do with us. But it must have taken a lot of discipline and just, you know, self motivation and just keep reminding yourself you have to, like, you know, sometimes you got to step back to move forward, right? And, you know, I'm glad you found that activity that kind of brought you back and brought a lot more harmony to your state. So that's great. We're glad to have you here with us, still kicking in and being happy, you know, and still figuring out and navigating through it. You know, I can't even imagine all the sacrifice. It's when I say, you know, when I tell veterans like yourself, or still sometimes active duty folks, you know, appreciate their service, I really mean that, because it goes on a much deeper level than, you know, a lot of people see from the outside. A lot of people experience or even tend to even think about. So it's great that you had those great experiences. You know, things change and you're pivoting to different spaces. And hey, you still run 15 Fathoms. We thank you for that.
Yeah, I love it. I want to, and you know, I love it that it's been 5 years now. Within those 5 years, I've seen probably 6 or 7 other companies pop up. You have 5 Atmospheres. You have Max Depth. My boy Nick Gomez owns Max Depth Apparel. You have the Rev 7 gear, Black Mass Divers. Black Mass Divers is really cool. They're doing stuff for
I think it's
first responders and like kind of like safety divers, like more on that side of the house, like emergency rescue divers, that kind of stuff. But it's cool. I love that there's been this community of guys that are like, oh man, I want to start a diving apparel brand. I'm going to do it, and I don't know. I have no plans of them stopping. I've got beanies coming out. I got two different variations of beanies coming out. I want to start doing more functional stuff. Like I like to swim open ocean, right? I swim open ocean, open water, rivers, wherever. And there's times when like I'll swim way out and it'll be kind of choppy. And I'll be like, shit, like it'll get kind of sketchy. Like I'll be, I'll start swimming, and then I'll like catch a mouthful of water, and I'm like, like stay afloat. So what I want to develop is a pull buoy that is kind of shaped in a U. So if you really need it, you can just kind of put it under your legs, and then you can kind of sit in the water and take a breath, get your head above water, and just relax for a few minutes. And then once you kind of caught your breath or you stop choking, then you can get back after it, because a lot of the pull buoys they sell, they're kind of like just little sticks that kind of stick up out of the water, like the diver down things, but you really can't hold, all they do is make you visible, but you can't really use that as a safety device, where I kind of want to have like a dual function. It's a safety device in terms of my visibility, but also as my buoyancy, because as soon as I'll swim without a wetsuit or anything on, and I'll just like, if I pass out, I'm gonna sink eventually or whatever, take on water. So it's nice to have something to hold on to.
Yeah, I think I've seen lifeguards use some, not exactly the same, similar, just bright enough that it can kind of use it for buoyancy. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm glad there's and that's a cool thing. There's enough space there's room for everybody. And with new innovations, new situations, you start thinking of, this is a very personal problem that you're trying to solve, and then you'll be surprised how many people this really applies to once you start getting it out there. And that's why it's always important to just get out there, do it, try it, tell your story, and let everybody just absorb it. That's great. Oh man, you have a ton of experiences, man. That's pretty cool. What's the best advice? Sorry, what's that?
Oh, I was going to say about the Dead Sea, the Aqaba.
Yeah. What? So you were stationed in the Middle East at one point, right? Did you actually ever dive in Aqaba, or?
I had a deployment in the Middle East, and they were kind of sending us wherever we needed to be. But I found myself in Aqaba in Jordan for a while, and man, we did a major job. We did a big job on a ship that had pulled in. But beyond that, the tourism there, the tourism for someone who's an adventure seeker, like they're not really much about like art galleries or going to see a movie or a play.
Yeah.
But the natural stuff they have there. So they have the Dead Sea that you can swim in, and you can like float above the water. Basically, it's the most buoyant you'll ever be in your entire life.
Right, because of the salt, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so there's that, and that's a fun day in itself, right there. But then they also have this thing called the Riverwalk. The Riverwalk, you kind of check into the guy, he gives you a life vest, and it's like this river that's kind of shallow that it's like almost like a hike, but there's running water the whole time. So it's like ideal. The ideal thing to wear would be like a set of booties, like wear a set of booties because you're walking, but you're wet, or just a pair of sneakers that you don't care about, like a pair of tennis shoes, you don't mind getting wet. But you finally get to the end, and there's this big waterfall, and you can kind of like, oh yeah, we're here, and then you walk back, and it's just so fun because you're walking through a big gorge the entire time. I don't know if you're into like religious stuff. There's a place that claims that it's where Moses sent the casket. I don't know that Bible story. Jesus stuff.
Yeah.
There's some Jesus stuff to go see if you're into that. I'm not a super religious guy, so I thought it was cool, but I wasn't like, oh man, like let's bless ourselves in the water. I was like, that's all right, cool. We saw this. This is nice.
Why not, right?
Well, here's the thing. Once you're there, there's like a placard. They're like, this is where we think it all happened. And I was like, wait a minute. I didn't come here for assumptions.
No shit. You think it's just this one, or it could be one of those other formations? Like, which one is it?
Yeah, like this is probably where Jesus put his feet in the water. Probably.
That's funny.
Yeah, and then Petra.
And where?
Petra.
And Petra.
Petra is the city that it was built before BC, but the weather in Jordan is so mild. So there's no extreme heat, there's no extreme cold, there's no wind, there's no rain.
Interesting.
And so this city, these structures have been untouched for thousands of years. And you take a little horse down, and then you can take a camel if you want to. We decided to walk, and you go but there's like an old monastery, there's an old castle, there's columns that are still there. And I mean, that's I don't know. That's something you take that to the grave with you, because it was such a I don't know, an unreal experience. Those are the moments that when I was, while I was active duty, that I was like, look at what I've gotten myself into, in a good way. Like this is what I've been searching for. Like this is such a wonderful experience that I would never, people just don't know about Jordan. They don't know how nice Jordan is, and it's a great country, But yeah, so that was, I don't know. Petra's another. I'm just making your bucket list even sweeter, because there's all those things to see in Jordan. Yeah,
you just had me plugging a bunch of pins in there, like, okay, Petra, the river walk, because that's the pure definition of adventure. Would you say that's kind of been your most interesting experience so far, with kind of like the adventures you've been on, or is it something else?
That's probably the most fun trip I've ever done, was because we did a really good job. We knocked it out, and then we got to go have fun and go do fun dives. And I mean, it was a bunch of Navy divers, but it's if you go to Jordan, it's all set up. Like there's like probably 8 or 10 different dive centers where you just pick which one you like the best, and they take you down there. But the crazy thing about one was our dive guide, the lady who was taking us, was like an older Russian or German lady, and she had kind of, she had I don't know, I have a hard time hearing, like when someone has a really heavy accent, I have to really focus, and I kind of wasn't listening to what she was saying. But then I heard, like, if you are lucky, you will die. And I was like, what? 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 Wait, what are you talking about? Yeah. hold the phone. Yeah. What? You need to say that again. And with me listening, and she's like, do not touch a stonefish. If you see me do this, it means I've seen a stonefish. Do not touch stone. I was like, where are these stonefish? And she said, we're going to go to an area where the tanks were, the whole tank thing. We're going to see that. Yeah. But the tanks are it's not very deep where the tanks are, or at least the spot there I was at. And so you want to kind of stand up and stand on the bottom, but she's like, when we go by the tanks, that's where, and just don't stand on the bottom. Don't let your feet touch the bottom, because they have a little hook that sticks out, and they look like a rock. But if that hook has a quill that will go into your foot, and if she's like, the pain that it causes, it'll turn your whole arm black and your arm will fall off. And she's like, that's why I say you're lucky if you die, because I'd rather die than suffer through that. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, man. Like, we're paying to do this? like shit. Like, wow. Okay. But she was awesome. She had like a little metal wand. She'd kind of shepherd us around, like, come on, boys, go this way, and come on that way. This sweet little lady. She was just so nice, but she was very, very seasoned diver. But then she kind of like was like, hey, huddle up on me. And she grabbed her wand, and she popped up a stonefish, and she's like, yeah. And we're like, oh wow, so she found them. She was brave enough to go and like actually mess with the animal that could kill you. So I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. And I don't know, that was the experience. Cool. The tanks are cool. The big ship, you go through a big long tanker ship inside the skin of the ship, and there's it's a breeding ground for lionfish. There's lionfish everywhere, and so you're swimming right next to lionfish, and it was really neat. But yeah, that was probably my favorite one. I don't know, like on the Navy side of the house was the F-18 recovery. That was one of the coolest things I ever got to do, and it wasn't very dive heavy, but it was just so an F-8. So we were in the Middle East. An F-18 Super Hornet had taken off the flight deck of an aircraft carrier and had a catastrophic engine failure about probably 1,000 yards out. Yeah. Both pilots ejected. Both pilots were saved. The Navy has some really awesome swimmers, really good standby swimmers for if something like that does happen. So both pilots their lives were spared, thank God.
Recovered and everything.
Rescued. One guy had some back injuries, but they're alive. They're home.
That's awesome.
Luckily. But the airplane went to the bottom. We had to go get it. We didn't have time to wait for a mixed gas console, so we had to roll with air. And the depth limitation for air diving in the Navy is 190 feet. And so this thing was at like 186. So we were kind of pushing it. So we knew we were going to get narked. We knew we were all going to get narked. We just didn't know how bad and who. So we had to set up, bring a little ocean tug out, set a moor, identify the ship. I got to dive it twice because we were trying to figure out because the way it hit the surface of the water, but then it overturned where the landing gear was sticking up. So like the wheels were sticking up and it was kind of cracked in half. So we decided to do this in two different phases. The first phase was get the cockpit and like the fuselage up and all that stuff. And thank God for my buddy Aaron. I had my friend Aaron Jones with me, and we had this big wire pennant, wire cable that we were going to go around the landing gear and pull it up from the landing gear. And then I had a rope with me, and so Aaron walked out first to get to the project, and he kind of knew where the project was. And I have like the pennant, a rope like to lead me there, and then I had my umbilical. And I'm sorry, the towing hawser. I was pulling the hawser along to tow it up, and I dropped my umbilical. Well, my umbilical is kind of how I was staying with Aaron. I was kind of hanging with him, right? And then I dropped the umbilical, and I'm like, and then the nitrogen narcosis kind of set in. So I'm like, hey, topside, I'm sorry, but I lost the umbilical, and I don't know where Aaron's at. And Aaron's like, dude, Tommy, I'm right here, man. And so like, and Aaron's like, and it was and the silt had kicked up. So you couldn't see anything. And so I feel my buddy like grab my chest and he's like, I'm right here, man, chill out. And I was like, all right. And we got the wire on, we got the shackle in, and yeah, that was one of the dives. Before that, we were trying another technique where we were trying to fish a cable underneath like the fin of where the airplane was. That didn't work out. But you only had 35 minutes down there, and you had to get back to the stage. And then from the stage, you owed two recompression periods in the chamber. So you go on 100% O2. They do like a 20 minute O2 period, and then a break, and then 20 minutes again, and then you're now ready to go, you couldn't dive for the rest of the day, but the following day you could dive again.
That's crazy. That's one hell of a story. Recreational divers, if you're listening to this, do not try this at home. These are well-trained, seasoned, experienced divers that know exactly what they're doing. With the best gear and equipment there is available, period. So is that the case, or is the military stuck in like for just regular training? Or are they stuck in like frog fin from the 60s?
No.
Best top of the line, right? Yeah.
Scuba. We go with the Aqualung. I can't remember which. There's a couple different ones. We use some of the I can't remember the other brand. Poseidon. We use the Poseidon regs for cold water diving, and then there's an Aqualung that we've used for 30 years now, but it's just because you can't break it. It just takes a lot of abuse. It's not very pretty. It's not a pretty little like fancy high tech regulator, but man,
very
you can
functional.
You can drop that shit on the ground and it'll be all right. It doesn't really affect it. But for the hard hat diving, for like, you know, putting the helmet on, they keep us on like the leading edge of what's, you know, what's going new, and out with the old and with the new. They come, you know, if Kirby Morgan comes out with a new product, the military jumps kind of right on it. Well, because it's, you know, they, as things get better and better, they also get safer. So they have, you know, they have new things in place to keep your diver comfortable, to keep your diver where you're not over breathing the rig. Because a big concern of it is, like, you know, if you're getting so much air through your direct feed and then you're breathing over breathing the rig, well, you're going to get some of your own carbon dioxide mixed in with the air. And so there is the chance where you can start getting like kind of like faint, you know, you can get sort of
lightheaded and stuff.
You get a little lightheaded, you start getting a little bit, you know, lax or sort of, you know, and you got to know the difference to be able to purge that stuff out.
Yeah. How do you equalize your stuff? Like, do you have to with like a typical, would that be similar to like a full face? Yeah.
Yeah, the helmets they have a nose block, and it kind of slides in and out. So you press your nose on that and you can kind of, you know, do it. But yeah, the smaller ones, just like I don't know. Sometimes I would like pull like the rubber ones. I would just pull it out and like get it real quick, because I don't know. I've got to clear. I'm that kind of person where some guys they just like they'll do all this and they'll be fine. And not me, man. Yeah. I gotta pinch my nose because I clear kind of slow in this year, so I always have to Valsalva.
You have a lot of experience from both sides, both on the civilian side and on the military side. If anyone's watching this that's probably aspiring to join the Navy and become a Navy diver, what one thing would you tell that person? One for divers in general, and one for aspiring Navy diving.
For anyone, plan your dive your plan. It's the biggest thing. If you say, hey, we're gonna go, you know where you're diving, know where it's charted out, and dive watches are fantastic, but kind of always have in the back of your mind, all right, we're going to this depth and we can be down for that long. Like just always have that in the back of your mind, because dive watches, they can fail. They don't fail that often, but they can. Yeah. But it's good to have that sort of like, all right, well, we're going to go down to 80 feet. We're diving nitrox, so we have X amount of minutes at this deep depth. So yeah, have a plan always for the new scuba divers coming in, new divers. Plan your dive, stick to it. Everybody will come home safe. For people that want to pursue Navy diving, I would say look into it as much as you possibly can. Understand that if you live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, you ain't gonna live there no more. Say, you're gonna have to kiss mom and dad goodbye. And if Susie wants to come. If Susie wants to stay in Oklahoma, you might want to reevaluate your relationship, because you're going to be traveling around a lot. The Navy, it's not just a job; it's kind of a lifestyle. So if she's not on board, then it ain't going to work out. You got to have the right kind of person in your life that's gonna say, all right, yeah. We're moving to Virginia in 3 years. Let's go to Virginia. We're going to Guam for 3 years. Let's go to Guam. We're going to Hawaii. Let's go to Hawaii. You have to be flexible with that, and do it for the right reasons. Do it to be the best version of yourself possible. And don't lose focus of that, because and then like, if you get sick of it, get out. I see a lot of people. I've met a lot of people in the military who were miserable, who were just like, but they like that. They like the steady paycheck. They like the benefits. But they hate their lives, and that's something that I'm a big advocate for mental health, and we're not going to go there for this episode. But if you don't like it, you can always just not re-enlist. Stick with it for that 4 years and just move on with your life. You don't have to be in the military forever. But me, I loved it. I would still be in San Diego. I was actually looking for another set of orders in San Diego so I could stay there before the injury happened. So, hey, life takes turns, and here we are.
No, again, I gotta say, I can't say this enough. A lot of personal sacrifices, a lot of good work that you've contributed to to the nation, to your buddies, to your family, to us now. So thank you for your service. And where can we find you online?
15fathoms.com.